I've always been fascinated with everything related to human psychology and understanding how we work and why we work differently, especially. It's the difference that I've always found interesting. Why am I like this? Why are other people like that? And when being in search of understanding more about myself as someone with that I know now have borderline personality disorder, I did a lot of searching and a lot of dabbling and fiddling with all kinds of strange scientific theories and less scientific theories. One of those are the Myers-Briggs type indicator. For many years I was looking really much into this, and I'm fully aware of all the issues and problems it has. It is a misused and misunderstood way of looking at human cognitive functions. You can use it, but you should use it for the right things. And by the right things, I mean not doing personality tests for when you're in the process of employing someone. I hate those. Those are complete and utter bullshit for many reasons. One of the reasons being the simple fact that Myers-Briggs is a well-known kind of test that someone being knowledgeable in, like myself, can very easily manipulate. I can become any type I want on a test with, well, of course, some error margin for me not really understanding a question maybe, but I know and I understand how the function works. So I also understand how the test works by doing so. I mean, if you look at Myers-Briggs, there are two levels of understanding it, basically. The first level being hearing about the archetypes, INFJ, ESTP, and so on. And trying to categorize yourself as some of these archetypes, these 16 exist, these defined from Jungian psychology. And then, as you learn more about it, you get interested in what's behind this. And then you understand that behind the letters T, F, N, S, and what's the last letters now? J and P. There are functions defined by what dominates a process of thinking. And those are, without a doubt, very interesting. They are a way of describing how a brain works. And those I can easily stand by and say they are scientific. They are a scientific way of describing the cognitive function of the brain. Simplified, yes, and the conclusions you can draw from it by creating archetypes are, of course, well, they are lacking. Therefore, it's not the archetypes that are interesting, it's the way you process information. And according to this Myers-Briggs way of describing this, I am an INTP, a logical, rational, intuitive perceiver. Meaning, in a perfect world, I should perceive data from a wide array of intuitive perspective. Like, the first process is thinking, internal thinking. The second process is extroverted intuition, meaning I contemplate various options. I do it intuitively, so it's not a process I do by forcing it. That's the main thing about these function. It's supposed to be the natural way you do things. How does information and things go in and out of you? That's one way of putting it. And the third function is what's the third function? It's sensing. It's internal sensing, memory, and then all things related to details and so on. And the last function I have is extroverted feeling, meaning empathy and expressing feelings of the group and so on. It's difficult really to explain out of context like this. I mean, empathy is not only connected to this, of course. Well, anyways, to describe an INTP, you will have a person that is logical, rational, and quite unexpressive in emotions. And on all tests I've ever done in my entire life, I've always become INTP and on occasion INTJ and also on occasion ISTP, depending basically on how I felt, being a little bit vague. And I always wondered why some people are less prone to fit in a category. And my initial thought was, well, that's because Myers-Briggs lacks in nuances. It is not a good way of describing things, basically. There are more than 16 types of people in the world. That's basically it. And yes, that is true, but there must be something else also. And now, when I have borderline, well, I had it before, I mean, knowing that I am borderline, I start to realize, well, this is not so strange. My sense of self varies. It is not a constant. It is a thing that varies with how bad my borderline is, basically. So, sometimes I'm basically a very emotional person. But I've also noticed that I am this when I'm not feeling good. So it wasn't my natural state. My natural state is a very calm person that contemplates things, and I'm quite comfortable in also improvising thoughts and ideas. That's the NE function. So that's the TI and NE function, very, very solid in my mind. And I'm also very good at recollecting details and so on, and I can draw conclusions from a huge number of details also. And in general, I'm very good at analyzing a problem. Give me a problem and I am good at finding patterns and everything like that. And I am a little bit of a jokester emotionally. I am flirtatious and so on. All those fit very well in the last function, the FE. So, I am an INTP, but when I break down, I'm something completely different. And now that I understand what this is, it's starting to make sense, because now it's possible for me again to realize that, hey, maybe some of this issues you had with Myers-Briggs, and using it as a tool of describing a cognitive process for which it's quite good, wasn't related to issues with Myers-Briggs itself as much as it was with the simple fact that you have a mental condition that makes you very unstable, makes your cognitive processes sometimes go all haywire. And a huge, massive FE/FI, the internal feeling process, becomes dominant, as it does with people who suffers from depression. I mean, Myers-Briggs themselves, they quite clearly stated that this cognitive process will get dominated quite quickly by other processes when you are in any way possible suffering from something or have a condition or something. These are more relevant, and it makes basically Myers-Briggs null and void. That's what they said themselves. And I agree. If you want to use Myers-Briggs for categorizing people, you will fail. It's useless as a type categorizing tool. It is only useful for what it's actually named for after. It's a type indicator, Myers-Briggs type indicator. And it annoys me greatly, and I've taken a lot of discussions on this on professional networks like LinkedIn and so on with recruiters and people who are employers and HR people and so on that use Myers-Briggs and other tests for hiring people. That was never the intention for it. It's best described as an intellectual curiosity tool for you to understand and verbalize how the human mind process things. It's like an alphabet. It's like an instrument of communication, basically. So, I like Myers-Briggs, and I will always probably like it. I think I know basically everything there is about it by this. I found out about it in like 2006 on the internet, like many other people, long before it became established, and I quickly obsessed about it, like very typical for INTPs to do, and learned a lot about it, trying to understand it, because it was not only it was an intellectually interesting topic. I had this unfulfilled need to understand myself, lacking a good identity, being borderline. This was like the glove that fit the hand perfectly, an instrument to try to make sense of how minds and thoughts and feelings shift from people to person to person. So I wouldn't say it's useless. It is interesting to understand how cognitive processes work, could be described as working, at least. But it's completely horrific when it's used to categorize people in a professional employment situation or anything similar like that. I'm basically in favor of someone creating some, like ban or legal things that makes this process at least shunned upon more than it is, because it is annoying. It stresses people out, and it's basically as useless as an IQ test for someone. Don't let me get started on that. I was very interested in IQ test. I mean, I did the Mensa approval test, and I actually easily managed to to succeed and so on, but I also consider it to be complete and utter bullshit, because you can learn, it's a process, learn intelligence. It is not a natural raw intelligence in any way like they describe it is, because it requires knowledge and understanding about, it doesn't require it, but if you have it, if you understand what a what's the word? I'm lacking it now. It's cold out here. Well, anyways, it is a lacking way of describing what it says it is describing. It is a mean to categorize the human mind and its functions as similar to Myers-Briggs, but it comes with the problem that it also grades people. Myers-Briggs doesn't really grade people, but you can bet that IQ test does. And when it's possible to improve every result you have on an IQ test with, like, I don't know, 20 points or something, just by learning how they work and training and practicing on IQ tests, then what exactly is it describing? Is it describing something useful for a work-related thing? Maybe, if the work is related to analyzing data and so on, could be, but the IQ test and the Myers-Briggs test and also sort of tests are used in completely irrelevant situations. A friend of mine applied for a work as a receptionist at a hotel and had to do an IQ test. I mean, what? It was a standardized thing they just did, the recruiters. I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, how stupid are you if you think that an IQ test says anything about how good a person is to do a receptionist work? I mean, that work is all about, apart from the obvious, having previous knowledge about it, it is about how you deal with people, your social skills. It is about being organized and service-minded and all those kind of things. IQ, to use that as a tool for describing any of this, is basically like looking at the font or typeface of a book and describing what the content of the book is. It is completely and utter useless. And we live in a world where people are obsessed with these things in a professional setting, and it annoys me. These things are basically only interesting from a personal perspective, for your own self-development, for yourself, to understand yourself, your possibilities, your limits, the reason why things are like they are, why you respond differently to something like a stimulus or input or emotion to an extent different from your friends. You can use these things. You can understand why, hey, I have an easy time doing maths, but I have a difficult time of understanding emotions. Well, then tests like these are helpful, not on their own, but you can use them to understand what's happening, basically, to a certain extent. Let me underline this very much. They are not on their own very good at all. And I'm going to say this one final time. They are completely useless when it comes to any professional evaluation of a person. Completely useless. I mean, the only exception I can ever think of is in a medical setting. If you want to understand why someone is struggling to understand something, then sure, cognitive functions and And IQ could be relevant for a psychiatrist to understand and evaluate someone. Maybe could be useful. But in all other cases, with moronic people looking at these tests who are completely without the skill needed to understand the results, they are useless. They are so goddamn useless. Well, feels good to get that off my chest, and now I'm going to go inside again because it is really chilly today, and I struggled out here today, which you could possibly hear from my stuttering and trouble finding words. Well, anyways, this is the Borderline Man signing off.